What if nothing in your life has ever truly been random? Not the heartbreak, not the delay, not the person who left you without explanation. What if the things that felt like endings were never accidents at all, but silent beginnings wrapped in unfamiliar shapes? In the eyes of Buddhist wisdom, there is no such thing as coincidence. Every experience is part of an unfolding. Every moment, even the painful ones, carries a message, not to harm you, but to awaken something within you. You see, life doesn't speak in loud declarations. It whispers. It speaks in symbols, in synchronicities, in the quiet patterns only the still mind can hear. That rejection, it might have been redirection. That loss, a lesson in letting go. The universe isn't punishing you, it's preparing you for something your current self can't yet see. So pause, breathe, and ask yourself gently, what if the pain had a purpose? What if the detour was the path? What if you were never forgotten, only being shaped into something deeper? In today's video, we'll explore this ancient truth that Buddhism has carried for centuries, that nothing is truly coincidence, everything belongs. Everything points you inward. And before we begin, if your soul is craving clarity, stillness, and sacred insight, where each video is a doorway back to yourself, and yes, stay with us to the end. There's a powerful bonus lesson waiting just for you. Let's begin. Lesson 1. The moment you broke was the moment you began. There comes a moment in every life when something shatters. A word unspoken. A goodbye that lingered too long, a silence that said everything. And in that moment, something inside you breaks. Not with noise, but with a quiet devastation that only the soul can feel. But here's the truth that Buddhist wisdom has long whispered. What breaks you is not meant to destroy you, it is meant to open you. The crack is not a flaw, it is a doorway. Imagine a clay vessel, whole, unremarkable, ordinary, but once it cracks, light enters, and what once simply held form now holds radiance. This is the hidden grace of suffering. It strips away illusion, softens our grip on control, and reveals what we tried to keep buried. According to the first noble truth, life will bring suffering, but the second tells us this suffering has causes, and with understanding, it becomes a path, not a curse, a calling. Pain is not the enemy. Resistance is. When we fight our sorrow, we become rigid, but when we sit with it, softly, like one would with a wounded child, something shifts. Clarity arrives, not as thunder, but as stillness. The ache you've been avoiding may carry a sacred message, not to fix, but to feel, not to erase, but to embrace. I remember a time in my own life when trust was broken. Someone I loved disappeared without a trace, and I was left with questions that echoed in the silence. But strangely, in that emptiness, I found a deeper presence. Not the self I wore like a mask, but the one beneath it, the one untouched by praise or abandonment. It was there in the dark that I began to see the light within. So I ask you, what pain cracked you open? What wisdom rose from the ashes of your undoing? Instead of wishing it away, write it down. Hold it. Listen. That scar you carry is not your weakness. It is your becoming. If this reflection speaks to you, pause for a breath. Subscribe for more quiet teachings of the heart. And if you feel cold, share in the comments. What moment transformed you? Or simply whisper to the universe, I trust every twist. Because here we remember, nothing is coincidence. What left you wasn't meant to stay. What broke you didn't ruin you. It awakened you. The soul does not shine in spite of the cracks. It shines through them. Lesson 2. Your delay is not denial. It is divine preparation. There are seasons in life where everything feels still. The world moves, but you remain paused. Doors don't open, no matter how many times you knock. Effort echoes back as silence, and in that silence, a quiet fear begins to stir. Have I been forgotten? Is this stillness a punishment? But perhaps it is none of those things. Perhaps the pause is protection. Perhaps the delay is alignment. In Buddhist wisdom, patience is not passive waiting. It is trust in what cannot yet be seen. When life says not yet, it may be offering you a gift far deeper than the one you were chasing. Timing in the spiritual realm is not about control. It's about readiness. Not just readiness to act, but readiness to receive from a place of clarity. Think of the bamboo tree. For years it shows nothing. No shoots, no leaves, no sign of growth. But underground, it's preparing. Its roots stretch deep and silent, anchoring for what's to come. And then, seemingly overnight, it rises tall and unshakable. The world calls it sudden, but the soul knows it was sacred preparation all along. You may be in your underground season, invisible to others, uncelebrated but essential. This, too, is practice. This is the art of surrendering your timeline and trusting the unfolding. In Buddhist teachings, this is patience without resistance, the deep breath in the middle of uncertainty. Take a moment now. Inhale gently and say to yourself, I trust. Exhale softly and whisper in perfect timing. Let it echo within you until something tender begins to relax. When you are delayed, you are given the chance to see more clearly, to ask deeper questions, to refine not just what you want, but who you are becoming. This is how desire softens into wisdom through waiting that ripens the heart. I remember someone who wept over a lost opportunity, a job they believed was meant for them. But months later, another door opened. This time it wasn't just about status or success. It aligned with their values, their peace, their truth. That earlier no wasn't a rejection, it was a divine redirection, a sacred not yet. So what if your waiting isn't wasted? What if this quiet chapter is shaping you for something greater than what you thought you wanted? Ask yourself, what strength is growing beneath the surface? What roots are taking hold in the unseen? You are not behind. You are being brought into rhythm with a life that fits not just your plans, but your soul. If these words resonate, breathe with them, like this video, and share with us what have you been waiting for and what has it taught you. Let this truth settle in your bones. Nothing is coincidence. The path isn't lost. It's preparing you to walk it fully awake. Some delays are not detours at all. They are the exact coordinates of your alignment. What falls away reveals what endures. There comes a time when something you held close begins to slip away. A love you cherished, a dream you nurtured, a role that once defined you, and as it unravels in your hands, the heart aches with a quiet desperation. Why now? Why this? When I gave it everything, it feels like betrayal, like life has turned its back. But perhaps it is not betrayal at all. Perhaps it is truth removing the unnecessary so that what is essential can be seen. In Buddhist wisdom, impermanence is not a punishment. It is a path. What leaves is not always loss. It is often a lesson in what remains. The falling away is not the end. It is the beginning of clarity. Think of the autumn tree. It sheds not because it is dying, but because it trusts the cycle. It does not grip its leaves. It lets them go with grace, knowing that beneath the bare branches, life is still moving, quietly, inwardly, preparing for renewal. The same is true for you. What you are losing may simply be what you have outgrown. There was a time when I clung tightly to an identity that no longer fit, a mask shaped by fear, by expectation. I told myself I needed it to be worthy, but the tighter I held on, the more restless I became. And one day, life whispered, not with cruelty, but with kindness, "This is no longer you." When I finally let it go, I didn't fall apart. I expanded. Letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the knowing that what is real cannot be taken, what is true remains. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture your heart as a tree. Imagine its branches stretched open, generous and bare. Now release one leaf, just one. Let it float. Let it go. Not with resistance, but with reverence. This is the quiet beginning of healing, not in grasping tighter, but in learning to release with love. Because loss is not always a wound. Sometimes it is space where something deeper can rise. So ask yourself gently, what have I been holding on to that no longer holds me? What space is silently opening through that release? Sit with the question. Don't rush the answer. Let it rise like spring from frozen ground. And if life has ever taken something from you that felt unfair, breathe. It may have been grace in disguise, a sacred clearing, not a cruel theft. You see, the soul does not grow by adding more. It grows by letting go through absence, through silence, through falling leaves. Remember, the universe does not punish. It prunes. It removes to reveal. What leaves was never meant to define you. What stays, that is your truth. And nothing true is ever lost. Lesson 4. Rejection is not a wall. It is a turning point. There are moments in life when the door closes before you reach it. The opportunity slips through your fingers. A person you opened your heart to walks away, and in the quiet that follows, the question lingers like fog in the chest. Why me? But what if that no wasn't a punishment, but a redirection? What if the things that didn't work out were the very things that would have led you astray? In Buddhist wisdom, rejection is not the enemy. It is the compassionate wisdom of the universe, reshaping your path. When a door closes, it may be protecting you from fire you could not yet see. The ego says, I was denied, but the soul whispers, you were spared. Not every desire is meant to unfold. Not every longing is aligned with your deeper becoming. Life, like water, does not force its way forward. It flows. When a rock blocks the stream, the water doesn't shatter. It curves. It finds a new way. It surrenders its direction, but not its essence. And in time, it arrives at the ocean just the same. You too are allowed to bend. You are allowed to not understand. You are allowed to grieve what didn't unfold while still trusting that something else is moving beneath the surface. I once clung to a path I believed was mine. I pursued it with all the fire I had, but the more I reached, the more it slipped away, and at first I blamed myself. I felt unworthy, forgotten. But over time, in the silence that followed, I heard something deeper. That rejection had freed me. It had carved a space where purpose could take root. I hadn't failed. I had been redirected to something truer, something that fit not just my ambition, but my soul. So what about you? What painful no shaped you? What door that slammed shut led you closer to yourself? Let the memory rise, not to reopen the wound, but to see how it became the beginning of your healing. If you are standing now in the disappointment, take a breath. You are not lost. You are being repositioned. Trust the current. It flows with more wisdom than you can yet see. The universe does not block to punish. It blocks to protect, to teach, and to guide. And if this truth echoes within you, take a quiet moment to reflect. Subscribe, and in the comments, share. What rejection became your unexpected gift? Or simply write, I trust the current. Because sometimes the clearest direction comes wrapped in the word no. Lesson 5. The soul grows where comfort ends. There's a reason peace so often follows the storm. Not because the storm was cruel, but because it was sacred. The soul doesn't long for ease. It longs for evolution. And evolution never comes wrapped in soft blankets. It comes with wind, with pressure, with moments that crack you open so something deeper can rise. We are taught to seek comfort, to follow only what feels good and light. But the soul is wiser. It leads us into places where the ground trembles beneath our feet, into uncertainty, heartbreak and surrender, because it knows no real transformation ever comes without a little chaos. Think of the lotus. It blooms not in clean water, but in thick, dark mud. It rises through what others would avoid. And you too are made for rising. There was likely a moment in your life where everything collapsed. A chapter ended, not gently, but violently, and in the rubble you thought it was the end. But was it? Or did something quietly awaken from that collapse? A clarity, a courage, a version of you that had been waiting all along. This is how the soul works. It doesn't move in straight lines. It spirals. It returns you to your pain, not to wound you again, but to remind you that you've outgrown it. It invites discomfort not to harm you, but to heal you through growth. The truth is, comfort alone cannot awaken you. The soul does not want you to simply survive. It wants you to wake up. So take a deep breath, close your eyes, ask softly, what is my soul becoming through this struggle? Maybe it's becoming more tender. Maybe it's learning to let go. Maybe it's finally standing tall in its truth. Whatever it is, trust it, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. Because like the bamboo that must crack before it shoots upward, you are not breaking. You are being reshaped. Where in your life are you holding everything together out of fear? What if the falling apart is exactly what's required for the becoming? Pain is not the enemy. Discomfort is not a mistake. These are teachers, quiet, sacred guides, showing you where the old self ends and the new self begins. Because nothing is random, not even the storms, especially not the storms. The soul knows exactly what it came here to become. Lesson 6. Loss is a lantern that lights the soul. Not everything you lose is truly gone. Some things vanish in form but return in essence, quietly reappearing as wisdom, as strength, as a knowing that couldn't have grown without the ache of absence. At first, loss feels like a cruel thief. It takes what was once dear, without warning, without mercy, and leaves behind only silence. But if you stay with that silence long enough, if you breathe into it instead of running from it, something sacred begins to speak. We often believe loss is an ending, but sometimes it's a threshold, a doorway the soul must pass through to truly see. Like a teacup once overflowing, now empty on the floor, it is through the breaking that space is made for something richer, not always sweeter, but deeper, wiser, and unlike comfort, wisdom stays. Think back. What loss has shaped you the most? A love you couldn't hold on to? A future that never came? A dream that dissolved in your hands? At the time, it may have shattered you, but what did it leave behind? Maybe it gave you compassion for others who were hurting. Maybe it taught you how to sit with your pain instead of fearing it. Maybe it stripped away the illusions and introduced you finally to your truest self. We fear letting go because we mistake it for abandonment. But life has its own timing, and sometimes things fall away, not because you failed, but because they fulfilled their purpose. What no longer serves your becoming gently slips through your fingers, and only when you unclench your grip do you see it clearly. The wisdom was never lost, it just changed shape. Close your eyes. Remember one loss that still echoes inside you. Now imagine that loss not as emptiness, but as a lantern. What light did it shine on your path? What truth did it illuminate? Perhaps it taught you the value of presence, the fragility of everything you hold dear, the strength it takes to love without needing a promise. Perhaps it made you softer, more human. What if your deepest grief was also your greatest teacher? Breathe gently. Let go of wishing it had gone differently. It went the only way it could, not to punish you, but to awaken something in you that comfort never could. Loss is part of being alive, but suffering becomes sacred when we let it teach us, when we don't just carry the wound, but grow through it. That's how the soul moves, not in straight lines, but in circles of shedding and becoming. If these words stirred something tender in your heart, pause. Let them settle in the quiet, like this video. Subscribe for more soulful reflections. And in the comments write, "The light I carry came from what I lost," because some things once lost don't return the same. They return as light. Lesson 7. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay, but they always leave something behind. Some souls arrive like sudden light, brilliant, fleeting, unforgettable. They pass through your life like shooting stars, not to stay, but to stir something deep within you. You may mourn their leaving, but what if they were never meant to remain? What if their role was not to walk your entire path, but to awaken a piece of you that had long been asleep? Not all presence is meant to be permanent. Some people enter only to act as mirrors, brief reflections of who you are or who you're becoming. They crack open hidden truths, disrupt your comfort, challenge your boundaries, and then they go. The mind may cling, the heart may ache, but the soul understands. Not all teachers wear the robes of forever. Close your eyes. Picture someone who once mattered deeply, someone no longer by your side. A friend, a lover, a stranger whose presence marked you. Whisper softly, "Thank you for the gift I couldn't see back then." Perhaps they taught you strength by walking away. Perhaps their betrayal taught you the language of boundaries. Or maybe their love, though short-lived, reminded you that your heart was still capable of opening. Sometimes it's only in their absence that we finally see clearly. The laughter becomes sacred. The arguments reveal their purpose. The ending starts to make sense. Slowly the wound becomes a doorway. The pain becomes a teacher, and the goodbye becomes part of your becoming. What did they leave behind in you? A shift, a scar, a softness, a new sense of self. Every encounter carries meaning. Every soul who crosses your path arrives with something to give, even if it's not wrapped in kindness or clarity. Life does not move randomly. It dances, choreographed by cause, consequence, and quiet compassion. There are no accidents, only awakenings. Release the belief that relationships must last to be meaningful. Some of your deepest transformations were born from brief connections. A stranger's smile that softened your sorrow. A single conversation that altered your direction. A fleeting love that showed you the depth of your own heart. Not all journeys are meant to be lifelong, but every soul leaves footprints. Let your grief shape itself into gratitude. Let your longing refine into wisdom. If someone comes to mind as read these words, hold them for a moment in stillness and say thank you. Not because they left, but because they came, because something in you was never the same again. If this spoke to a quiet place inside you, like this video, subscribe for more soul-deep reflections, and in the comments, tell us, what did someone leave behind in you when they left your life? Even shooting stars leave trails of light. Let that light guide you. Lesson 8. The universe is not punishing you, it's redirecting you. There are moments in life that feel like the world has turned against you. A door slams shut. A relationship dissolves. A dream crumbles into dust. And you sit in the silence, asking the question that echoes through every wound. Why me? But the universe is not cruel. It is not out to punish. It is purposeful. It redirects. Imagine a boat sailing across vast open waters. The winds suddenly shift. The course you trusted begins to change. You tighten the ropes. You panic. You wonder if you're lost. But what if this unplanned turn is guiding you towards safer shores, towards something more aligned than what you once believed was meant for you? This is the quiet intelligence of the universe. Like the law of Dharma, it doesn't operate in straight lines. It bends. It moves like rivers toward unseen oceans. You may not always know the direction, but trust this. It's never by chance. It's never without purpose. Place your hand over your chest. Breathe in. Speak softly. Even this is leading me. You are not lost. You are being redirected, not away from life, but deeper into it, away from what would have broken you, toward what will shape you. Yet we resist. We take detours as failures. We see delays as punishments. We carry heartbreak like guilt. But what if the ending was not a curse? What if the loss was a turning point? What if the thing you wanted to keep was never meant to stay? Ask yourself gently, what pain have I mistaken for punishment? Was it the job that didn't work out? The person who left? The quiet season that felt like failure? And now, ask yourself again. Could that have been kindness in disguise? In Buddhist teachings, the universe doesn't deal in revenge or reward. It calls you again and again back to your way. The sharper the pain, the clearer the message. Not to make you fall, but to wake you. Not to control, but to let go. Not to push harder, but to feel more deeply. Sometimes the universe whispers, and we don't hear. So it sends a stronger wind, not to break your plans, but to save your soul, to strip away the illusions you held onto, so something truer could guide you home. Not your ego, but your true self. So take another breath, loosen your hold. You don't have to understand it all today. You're still moving, you're still growing, and this detour is not a mistake. It's a more sacred path. If these words touch something inside you like this video, subscribe for more Buddhist-inspired wisdom. And in the comments, share with us what once felt like loss, but now seems like a redirection in your life. The wind may shift, the road may turn, but trust this, your soul always finds its way home. Lesson 9. The quieter you become, the more life speaks. The world is noisy, but the loudest chaos isn't always outside you, it's inside. We rush through days asking, what's next? What should I do? Why don't I know? But maybe the answers aren't hidden out in the world. Maybe they're simply waiting in the stillness you've been avoiding. The soul doesn't speak in shouts. It doesn't demand your attention. It whispers softly, patiently, always. But to hear it, you must first grow quiet. Like a pond clouded by stirred mud, the mind clears only when left still, and in that clarity, life begins to speak, not with urgency, but with truth. So pause for just a moment. Sit in the silence you usually hurry past. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts drift like clouds. Don't fix. Don't overthink. Just be. That ache in your heart carries a message. That restlessness is trying to lead you. That deep pull you keep ignoring remembers who you truly are. Ask yourself, when was the last time I really listened? Not to the noise, not to others, but to myself. The world praises speed and noise, but the soul grows in quiet. She unfolds in slowness, and the most powerful truths don't arrive like thunder. They come like morning light, soft, steady, and sure. What if the guidance you've been seeking has been speaking all along through your breath, your instincts, your body's quiet wisdom, but you were too loud inside to hear it? What if your next step isn't about doing more, but becoming still enough to notice what's already calling you? Buddhist teachings remind us that wisdom isn't something you chase or try to earn. It's something you return to, something you remember. It lives beneath the noise, beneath the ego, beneath the fear, and it waits for you in silence. So today, give yourself that silence. Breathe slowly, close your eyes. Let the world soften around you. Don't fear the stillness. It's not emptiness, it's presence. It's the space where truth can rise, where the self you forgot can return home. If these words brought you peace, give this video a like. Subscribe for more heartfelt Buddhist reflections, and in the comments, share what silence has shown you that noise never could. Stillness is not the absence of life. It is life fully awake. Let it speak. Let it guide you. What you are chasing is simply waiting for you to grow into it. There's something you deeply long for, isn't there? A vision gently pulling at the edges of your soul. A dream you hold like a quiet flame, softly glowing. Even in your hardest moments you reach for it like a far-off star, working, praying, hoping. But maybe that dream isn't waiting at the finish. Maybe it's calling you to grow, not just to arrive. What if your longing isn't a final place, but a mirror? Not asking when you'll reach it, but who you'll become on the way there. Many times we mistake delay for denial. We feel like the universe is holding back from us, but in truth, life rarely gives us what we aren't ready to carry. A fruit picked too soon turns bitter. A door closed early might not be saying no, just not yet. Not until you become the one who can hold that dream with grace, not with urgency. Close your eyes. Breathe softly. Picture yourself already living that dream, not the outer things, but the feeling of being in harmony with it. Who are you in that vision? What have you released? What wounds have you healed? What truths have you finally faced? You'll start to see this. You were never only chasing a goal, you were being shaped to live it. The path isn't a punishment, it's the process of becoming. Every struggle smooths away what no longer belongs. Every rejection is a lesson, not a threat. The soul waits with patience. It doesn't search for shortcuts. It knows the real treasure isn't at the top of the mountain. It's hidden in the climb itself, in every step you take. The question isn't how fast can you get there, but how deeply can you grow on the way. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that true change isn't about rushing to achieve, but about aligning with who you truly are. Your outer life will always reflect your inner state. So don't ask, how do I get what I want? Ask, am I becoming the one who can receive it without fear? What you long for isn't outside you. It's already within, planted like a seed. And that ache you feel, it's your future self, softly asking you to rise into her. So let go of the rush. Release the need to control how it all unfolds. Instead, look within and ask, what part of me is still holding back from becoming? Is it an old belief, a hidden wound, a truth I've avoided for too long? Just remember this, the dream isn't running away from you. It's waiting for you to return to yourself. And when you finally do, when you grow into the version of you that matches what you desire, you won't need to chase it anymore. You'll meet it with calm strength and the knowing that you truly deserve it. Here's a bonus lesson. Do less and become more. The quiet power of simplicity. In a world that celebrates constant doing, simplicity becomes a gentle act of rebellion. We're told to hustle, to always stay busy, to fill every minute with action. But often, the biggest change doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less, with deeper intention. Like a tree that grows not by rushing, but by staying rooted. Like a monk who touches the world not with noise, but with quiet presence. What if healing isn't about fixing more, but feeling more? What if peace isn't found in the next breakthrough, but in the breath you're missing right now? Clear away the extra noise, declutter your mind, let go of the need to prove yourself. And in the quiet that remains, you'll find something sacred. Your true self, simplicity, isn't emptiness. It's clarity, it's focus, it's freedom. When you stop rushing toward everything, life begins to move toward you. Conclusion. As you walk this path of awakening, remember, life isn't asking you to become someone else. It's gently leading you back to who you were before the world told you who to be. Healing doesn't come from fixing every flaw. It comes from truly listening, trusting the pauses, letting detours guide you, allowing silence to speak, and letting pain become a teacher. So breathe. Come back to yourself. You don't have to chase your worth. You already are enough, becoming more whole with every step, every fall, and every rise.